Hi everybody, Adam Steele here, and I like to mess with a thing called IRs a lot, impulse responses. Today's video is, what is that? What is that about? Specifically aimed at guitarists, because we can get into the super technical weeds with it. Today I'm going to try my best not to, and try and break down what they are, how you can use them in modern music and production and live sound, without necessarily sacrificing anything. I'm sure a lot of you will know something about IRs at this point, impulse responses, but for those who don't, that's perfectly normal. It's one of those things that has crept up over the last 10, 15 years and gone from this weird, nerdy, geeky thing that only a few of us really do, to something that is really quite popular and common now. So an impulse response is basically a distilled down digital file of, generally in our case, a guitar cabinet with a microphone or a couple of microphones in front of it, captured as a thing that is kind of like a 3D representation of that part of the sound. There are other types of impulse responses, we use them a lot in reverb as well, but in our case as a guitarist, that's what you need to know, is that you can get the sound of a specific cabinet with a specific microphone and have that as a file. Now, what does that mean? That means in the studio or in a home studio, you don't necessarily need to have a super expensive cabinet, a super expensive microphone, super expensive preamp, all that kind of stuff that goes into getting that kind of, Hollywood quality sound. All you need is the guitar amp itself. And if you're using an actual guitar amp, then you either need it to be connected to a speaker through a DI box that is designed to handle speaker sound, or through a load box. There are loads of different companies now that make load boxes. The Universal Aux box, Two Notes, who I'm very good friends with, make the Captor and the Captor X. There are loads of them, but you can use one of those with the amp you already know. Like I've got a Victory Sheriff here. You can use it and its controls and your pedal board and all that kind of stuff that you're used to, and then you can divert that sound. Instead of being full blast out of the speaker, if you have an attenuator, you can send that into this load box, and you'll hear a tiny little kind of fizzing sound, and that's the transformers and the tubes in the amp making the noise. You'd probably never have heard that before, because usually the speaker is so much louder that that's what you tend to hear. It's like if you've ever put a vinyl record on a player without plugging it in, you can really, really faintly hear the record playing. It's exactly that kind of thing. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard what an amp head actually sounds like without a speaker cabinet. If you've got something like an attenuator, you can hear that. It sounds horrible. It sounds like a sack of angry bees. It sounds something like kind of the Kinks' You Really Got Me, but worse. It's that kind of really raw, fizzing, hissing kind of thing. But what we do with that sound is we then take that and we process that through what we call an IR loader. Lancaster Audio have the Pulse IR loader, which is a nice, simple way to use an impulse response or even a pair of them and mix them together. And what people like me tend to do is we have these extensive cabinet collections, microphone lockers, and we use a bit of clever science and a bit of a of getting things like sine wave sweeps, and we capture the essence of that cabinet with that microphone in that position, kind of like a genie in a bottle. You then have a fixed thing. You can't then go and move the microphone later or anything like that. But what you can do is you can do it, in my case, over and over and over, so that you have loads of different files to choose from. That way, if you know roughly where on your cabinet you would put your microphone, there are packs with those kind of options, or sometimes we'll call them like the sweet position, or outside, or bright, or dark. However, whoever made them wants to name them, it's all up for interpretation, of course. But what you do is you get some kind of IR loader, whether it's in software like Impulse, which is what you can do in the studio, or you can take them out live. What you can do is, like, Two Notes have the Captor X load box, which has an inbuilt IR loader. So you take that file that we've made and you drop it in there, and hey presto, Live, you can send a cable out to the front of house guy and it sounds exactly like it did in your studio, in your home. Then that way they get the front of house signal. They're really happy usually because they get a really good consistent sound. There's no microphone on stage, so the drummers aren't making loads of crashing, bleeding cymbal noises that are bleeding into the guitar mics. The guitar mic can't move, can't be kicked, can't be put out the way because it doesn't have to be there. That's a really clever lifesaver. The other thing is, you can use this with a real amp and a real cab on stage. You don't need to be on a silent stage, but the front of house guy then has the option of having a perfect sound from you of your choosing. The other option, of course, is to have a silent stage, have an amp that runs into a load box. That way it's not then blasting into the drum mics. There is no bleed from the drum mics because then that's still an analog, actual valve head, but you're then going into a system that then goes straight to the front house and comes out of the monitor wedges or in-ears if you've got them. I know everybody not necessarily likes in-ears, but in a lot of cases, it's what works on stages where you need to hear yourself really clearly and you also need to move. It's an option. You can then go even further and go the digital route with something like Light 6 Helix or something like that. And then you can load the same impulse response in front of an amp model. We're getting into the weeds of digital there, but this is all the same thing in terms of the cabinet and the microphone. So for guys like me, I'm a bit old school. I like, when I'm on stage, to have an amp. If there's not enough treble in the amp sound coming out front house, I go to the treble knob, I do that. But that doesn't affect the IR. The impulse response that's being sent to the front of house guy, he's still happy. He's still got a perfect sound. And that's what you want. So at Lancaster Audio, I've got a producer pack there because I'm good friends with the guys at Zilla. And they make wonderful British handmade cabinets. And I've got 4x12s, 2x12s, 1x12s, all sorts of different weird and wonderful speakers with different choices of microphones. And if you flick through them, you'll probably very quickly go, I like that one. Right, I'm going to use that. And now everywhere I go in the world with my IR loader, the guy who's doing the front of house, doing the sound guy that night, gets my sound. That makes for a lot of happy engineers, which makes for a lot of great sound, which makes for happy audiences, which makes for a happy band. So there you go. That's why impulse responses can be really important to us guitarists.